Hello everyone, welcome to Java and Eclipse. This is the first lesson in a series of lessons where we are going to learn about the fundamentals of Java. This series contains everything from the basic building blocks to the advanced topics you need to know to be a successful Java programmer. By the end of this course, you'll be able to understand object-oriented programming, write clean and efficient code, and you'll even be able to speak confidently about Java. So thank you for joining, and I'm excited to start this journey with you. So before we get started, we need to install Java and we need to install Eclipse, our IDE. IDE stands for Integrated Development Environment, but what we need to understand that IDEs will help us write, run, and compile code much easier than if we were using something like a terminal or a notepad. So let us get started with the Java installation. So let us go to this link right over here. And once you go to that link, then you will see that we have Java 17 available. We are not going to be working with Java 17. If you scroll all the way down, then you will see Java 11 and Java 8. We'll be working with Java 8. Then under Java 8, you will see all of these operating systems. Now, the reason we'll be working with Java 8 is because a lot of the softwares and tools that we use in the industry, they're mostly compatible with Java 8. Some are compatible with Java 11. Java 11 is becoming the standard, but a lot of the institutions that you will go to, they're still using Java 1.8. So it is best practice to use Java 1.8 for this course and any future course in which you will need to use other tools as well. So come here and choose your operating systems. I'm going to show an install for Windows and I'm going to show an install for Mac OS. So let us start with the install for Windows. In the install for Windows, you will see two options, the 86 installer and the 64. Click on the 64 installer and then you will see terms and conditions accepted. Once you accept the license agreement, you can see this button will light up, so you can click on it and then that will take you to the sign in page. You will need to create an Oracle account. So here you can fill in all the relevant information. If you're a student, then don't bother with job title and company name, just write student for it. It's perfectly fine. So once you have created an account and you sign in with your username and password, then you should be able to see an install at the bottom of your panel. If you're using Chrome, then you will see it at the bottom of the browser. So once you have that down here, then you can click on it. After you click on it, then you should be able to see something similar to this. Once you get to this install setup, Java SE Development 8 setup, then you can click on next. Before you click on next again, just notice where it is being installed to, which is JDK 1.8, which will be installed to Java. It is okay if you have a completely different version, that's not important. As long as you have 1.8, that's fine. If you have 1.8-311, that's fine. It doesn't have to be 291.271. As long as it's 1.8, it will work. So there's no need to change any default settings. Just click next and click close. Now we have installed Java, but we need to tell our system where it exists. So in order to do that, first we need to get the path of Java. So to do that, go to this PC, double click on your C drive, go to program files, double click on Java, and you should see all your Java installs over here. I have more than one Java install. I have JDK 11. The newer versions only ship with the JDK, but the older versions come with the both JDK and JRE. If you've done your installation properly, then you should see a JDK and a JRE. If you do not, then you can go to Control Panel, uninstall a program, scroll down to Java Development Kit. Whichever JRE version you have installed, you can uninstall it. In general, If you do the install through Oracle, you should get JDK and JRE. So the one that we will be working with is the JDK. So double click on the JDK, double click on the bin. So then select this entire thing. We need to select this entire path. The way you can do that is you can click on this empty space. It will select the entire thing. Let me show it again. You can click on this empty space. Then you can either do Control C or right click, copy, and that will copy the entire path for you. So once you have this path, then we need to go back to this PC again. So we come over here, go back to this PC, and then we will right click on it and we'll select properties. You'll see all the properties for your system. So click advanced system settings. Once you click advanced system settings, you'll see the system properties. You can also search it up on the search bar, but this is the best way to do it. So once you have system properties open, click on environment variables, and then you'll see your user variables and your system variables. We'll be working with the system variables. So come down to the system variables and find something called path. Once you find path, click on edit. And once here, you can click new and paste in your path. You can do right click, paste, and that will paste in your path. Once you have this, you press enter and it should install it. I'm going to delete this because I already have it up there. So I have it up over here. One of the things you can do, and we'll talk about why we will do this, is you can move up your JDK path. I would say by default, if you haven't installed any other Java versions, then it's perfectly fine. You can leave it where it is. If you have installed other Java versions, we'll talk about that just in a bit. But for now, I'm assuming that you haven't installed any Java versions and you can just leave it where it is and it's going to be perfectly fine. You click OK, you click OK, you click OK. Now you can go to command prompt. To do that, again, go to your search bar and type in CMD and click command prompt. I'm going to scroll up on my mouse, control scroll up, and that should make the command prompt bigger. So the command you can write is Java space dash version. And once you press enter, you'll get 1.8.0, and it doesn't matter if you have a different version here, 3.11, 3.12, or whatever you get in the future is perfectly fine as long as it's 1.8, and that is going to be the Java version that we're going to be working with. Okay, now if that system doesn't work with you and you get some issue that Java version is not recognized, you can go to the control panel again and you can click on this and you can uninstall if you want to do it all over again if you want to. And you can also go to, again, this PC. You can go to this PC, right click properties, advanced system settings, come over here, go to environment variables, go to path, double click path, and you can just click this and you can just delete it if you want to get rid of everything, right? And you can also, in this article, there's several ways to do this. In this article, there's another way of doing it where they add a class path and they also add a path to the library as well. You don't necessarily need to do that. This system works. If it doesn't work for you, you can use this system. Either or systems are good as long as you can go to the command prompt and you're able to see 1.8 or point whatever the version is perfectly acceptable. So that is your install for Windows. Next, we are going to look at how to install for Mac. So again, to install for Mac, there's several systems in order to do so. One of the easier ways is to use something called OpenJDK, right? So you can install Homebrew, right? Make sure you have installed Homebrew and you have upgraded it as well. To install Homebrew, if you right click and open this link, and I'll share this article, you'll just have to copy and paste this command and that will install the Homebrew for you. So once you install Homebrew, you can do brew search OpenJDK. That will search OpenJDK. OpenJDK is the same thing as any Java, whichever Java you're looking for. So you should be able to see what OpenJDK you have. So the one we want is the OpenJDK at 8. This formula will allow us to install Java 8. So you can do brew install openjdk at 8. So this is only keg only, which means that your Mac OS does not have access to it. So what you need to do is pass this path where your OpenJDK is. You can also find where your OpenJDK is within your Mac, but by default, this path should work. So once you do that, if you do Java space dash version, you should be able to see you have a Java 1.8, whichever Java that is. So that is the way you can install for JDK 8. There are several other ways to install JDK 8. If you get stuck, it's perfectly fine. It's not a problem. You can look at several other ways to install it as well. So once you have installed your JDK 8, the next thing we need to do is install Eclipse. So what you need to do is go to eclipse.org/downloads, and you will be taken to this page. Now you can install the latest version, that's perfectly fine. And the installation process is going to be very similar for Mac and Windows. So click the download package and it will take you to a mirror. You can choose any mirror. It doesn't really matter. I have mostly used the US mirror, but if there's a different mirror that is only available to you, you can use that as well. So once you download it and then you can go to your downloads and you can run it, you'll get several options as to whether you want to do an Eclipse IDE for Java developers, or you want to do it for C, or if you want to do it for JavaScript. It really depends, but for ours, we are going to do Eclipse IDE for Java developers. And in this case, it says 1.8. You're probably going to see other versions like 11. Perfectly fine. It's not a problem because this is not going to conflict with our original install. So you're going to install this and you're going to launch it. And this will be your workspace. Your workspace is where all your files are going to be stored, and you can just launch it. And once you launch it, you should be able to see a completely new Eclipse. So let me open up Eclipse. So once you open up Eclipse, it will look very similar to this. I have projects because I have worked on several projects for this course, but you will have nothing here, which is perfectly fine. As long as you get an interface like this, you have Eclipse perfectly installed. So once you install Eclipse, it should launch in your default workspace that will have your projects available. In this case, I have already created projects. It's fine if you have not created any. So it will be completely empty. If you have done a clean install, there's no problem with that. As long as you're coming to this interface, you have perfectly installed Java and you have perfectly installed Eclipse. So I believe the steps are very similar for Windows and Eclipse, but either way, if you run into any issues, feel free to drop a message in the comments. If you find someone else is struggling and you have the answer to that question, feel free to reach out to them and answer them as well. But any problems that you guys occur, leave it in the comments and I'll be sure to be able to respond to them. So now I'm going to talk about some common issues that we can run into when we are working with Java install. So one of the issues that you can run into that I mentioned before when talking about Windows is that you have installed a newer version of Java, but you want to switch to an older version, right? And I ran into this problem myself. So I'm going to show how to do that for Mac, and I'm going to show how to do that for Windows. So for Windows, if you want to switch to an older version, what you need to do is, again, same thing. We are going to go to our this PC. We are going to right click on properties. We are going to click on advanced system settings. That will take us to environment variables. Within environment variables, we'll have to go to the path. And here, this is the main problem. If you have already installed Java, then you might see a file or a path called program files, common files, Oracle Java path. So this is the Java path, right? So this Java path is the Java path that is creating the problem. So what you can do instead is that you can move up the JDK. You can move it up. So when we first pasted the path, it was all the way over here at the bottom, right? If we want to, then we have this option called move up, where if you select a path, and in this case the JDK, we can move it up or move it down. So you want to make sure your 1.8 path is moved above the Oracle Java path. And that will ensure that you do not have conflicts. So now, if I press OK, we should be good. So we have seen how to work with newer versions of Java in Windows. Let us see how we can do that in Mac. So going back to the same article, if you have multiple versions of Java installed, right? If you do an ls, and you should be doing an ls in that directory, the Java virtual machines, you should be able to see that you have these different versions. So what you can do is that if you do Java version, it says 15, for example, you have to send the path, right? If you send the path, then you should be able to switch from the newer version to the older version. You can also set the Java home environment variable on Mac OS as well. But in general, this system should work if you're, especially if you're working with OpenJDK. So you should be good when switching to other versions. Now, this is a problem that both people from Windows or Mac can run into, and that is that switching to older version will break Eclipse. Let's say if you've installed a newer version, you have installed Java 11, and your Eclipse wants that Java 11 or is working with that Java 11, then it creates an issue where then if you switch from 11 to 1.8, your Eclipse will no longer launch. So what you can do at that point is you can just very simply delete your Eclipse and reinstall it. Now you may be worried that your older files, if you have older files, have been deleted, but you don't need to really worry about that. First of all, if this is your first install, you don't really need to worry about this. The best way to do it is install an old Java version and install the latest Eclipse. Eclipse will install the latest Java with itself, so you don't really have to worry about a conflict. But if you already have Eclipse ahead of time and you have had other versions ahead of time, so what you can do is you can just uninstall your Eclipse. That will make sure that when you reinstall it again, it's going to completely reinstall with a different version, and it will not conflict with your 1.8. And I believe the last issue is that if you're still struggling and you're seeing that Java is not recognized as an external command, you can also create actual paths and environment variables for Windows and Mac. That is linked in the description for Mac, but for Windows, you can simply just create a new system variable. You can create a new one, and you can call it Java home, right? Java underscore home, and you can pass in the bin over here, and you can create it, and then you can go to path. This time you're going to the path of the user variables. You can come over here, you can do edit, and then you can just paste this command, which I'm also going to share, person java underscore home person slash bin. So this is telling your user variables that here is where your Java home is. If the other systems are not working for you, this should work for you. Okay, so again, it's perfectly fine to run into issues when working with Java installation or Eclipse installations. If there are any issues that I haven't covered, or if there's something that you're running into that's very specific to you, feel free to leave a comment, and I or someone else will be more than happy to help you out. So I'd like to say that we want to provide courses, and we want to make sure you are not being interrupted. So instead of running ads for now, one of the things that we are trying to do is we have a Patreon. So please go and check out the Patreon. Any support that you are able to give would be really helpful. In addition to that, please like and subscribe and follow, because that really helps the channel out as well. So thank you so much for watching. I will be in the comments answering any questions that you have. And if not, I'll be seeing you in the next lesson.